Good morning. Is Inside Nigeria, fresh edition of the program on Leadership Television. Today is October 14, 2025. And of course, my name is Winifred Ogbebo, your host on the program. On today's show, we are looking at what the newspapers are saying, of course, with leadership. Nigeria's foremost and influential newspaper is a developing story on this cover today, talking about varsity lecturer strike. Of course, yesterday, the federal government wrote vice chancellors asking them to stop payment of lecturers' salaries, the striking lecturers. And in response, the striking lecturers say they are not intimidated by the federal government's no work, no pay policy. Let's go to leadership and see the cover stories. We are not intimidated by no work, no pay threats, say varsity lecturers, as government orders vice chancellors to enforce anti-strike policy. Strike paralyzes activities across campuses nationwide. We also have the pictures of some campuses whose activities have been granted by the activities of the striking lecturers. We have Musa Yar'Adua University, Katsina. We have University of Jos, Kwara State University, Malete, and Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Oka. Pictures of the campuses that are paralyzed by the activities of the striking lecturers in those institutions. Leading story on today's leadership. We are not intimidated by no work, no pay threats, say Varsity lecturers. Other stories gracing the cover of leadership today. Make peace with bandits, Shegumi tells Tinubu. Government warns cooking gas distributors against hoarding, price hike. Governors advocate constitutional role for traditional rulers. That story runs on page 20 of leadership. And on page 31 of leadership, World Cup qualifier, Nigeria, Benin in make or break clash today. Of course, adrenaline is pumping for today's match. Nigeria Super Eagles match with the Flying Eagles with Benin Republic. Moving towards the masthead of leadership, Nigeria records 145 building collapse incidents in 4 years. And that story takes us to page 23 of the paper. Above the masthead of leadership, National Assembly proposes November 2026 for presidential governorship polls, talking about the Electoral Act amendment. These are some of the bills presently pending before the National Assembly as they propose November 2026 for presidential governorship polls. Will it hold? Miriam Sanders' presidential pardon grave injustice, says slain husband's family. That story is a trendy story, and of course, it's also leading on some select newspapers in the country. Miriam Sanders' presidential pardon grave injustice, says slain husband's family. That story is also on page 7 of leadership. And in some papers, the family actually took a page editorial to drive home their point. With this last story gracing the cover, we move to the page 3 of leadership, where we have our stand. Today's stand is on narratives on Nigerian religious violence. Narratives on Nigerian religious violence. We'll take some excerpts from today's stand in leadership because it's a developing story like the cover story. The recent surge of condemnations from the United States Congress concerning violence perpetrated by Boko Haram in Nigeria has revived a heated debate about whether the country is witnessing a deliberate Christian genocide. Senator Ted Cruz, in a statement on October 8, 2025, accused Nigeria of permitting a massacre against Christians, referencing over 100,000 deaths since 2009 and the destruction of 18,000 churches. This perspective mirrored in a U.S. Senate bill aimed at accountability for religious freedom violations has elicited prompt counter-arguments from Nigerian officials. The federal government, in a press release dated September 28, 2025, dismissed these assertions as a gross misrepresentation, stressing that terrorists indiscriminately target Nigerians irrespective of their faith. Of course, the trendy story, and we are going to be seeing videos in the second half of the program where National Assembly is actually delegating, led by the Senate, led by Senator Godswill Akpabio, delegating a delegation to go to US for that issue and counter it. Continuing from the today's stand, narratives on Nigerian religious violence. Let's go towards the conclusion where the newspaper actually takes a stand in the stand. Once refuting state involvement, Nigeria must tackle perceptions through transparent inquiries. The 2023 Tudunbiri bombing, which resulted in 85 civilian fatalities, highlights the necessity for accountability to restore confidence. Regional collaboration through the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, could strengthen responses, given that jihadist threats extend to coastal nations. Public appeals on social media to dismiss foreign propaganda whilst addressing domestic matters indicate a yearning for self-directed solutions. In conclusion, the security dilemmas in West Africa necessitate nuanced narratives. By advocating balanced reporting that acknowledges assaults by minority groups against all Nigerians, we advance cohesion. The government must participate constructively, whilst media eschews sensationalism. Only through unity can Nigeria surmount this affliction. Today's stand in leadership on the developing issue of religious violence. It says narratives on Nigeria religious violence. Like I said earlier, we're going to be seeing the media viral video on this topic. Meanwhile, let's continue with leadership newspaper review. We move to the back page of leadership, where we have Tuesday column with Abdurrauf Aliyu. Today is writing on the theater of presidential pardon. Of course, it's no longer news that during the State Council meeting last week, President Bola Tinubu gave state pardon to about 179 convicts, and this has continued to generate controversies across the country. The theater of presidential pardon. Today is Tuesday column with Abdurrauf Aliyu, and we're taking a quote from the column. He said, when those convicted of murder, kidnapping, and drug trafficking are forgiven en masse without transparent criteria, the gesture seizes compassion. Like I said earlier, it has continued to generate controversy in the country. Before we leave the back page, let's visit Ghana Must Go. On the news, insecurity, Nigerians safer under Tinubu, insists Daniel Buala. That is on the news. We saw the news yesterday. And Ghana Must Go replied to that, what political appointments cannot do does not exist. How true. It is on that note we conclude today's review of leadership newspaper. And before we move on to the next paper we have on our lineup, let's see the video, because the call for Nnamdi Kanu's release by presidential candidate for 2023 election and a social activist and also a publisher, Omoyele Sowore, has continued to gain momentum in what he started calling on all these co-contenders to come out for the struggle against for a protest for Nnamdi Kanu's release has continued to gain momentum. And in his words, he said, Free Nnamdi Kanu Now struggle has grown into a powerfully uniting movement. People are flying to Nigeria from across the world, while others are joining from every corner of the country to join the historic march to the Aso Rock Villa on October 20, 2025. According to Sowore, let it be known that while preparations are in top gear for the hashtag Free Nnamdi Kanu Now march to Aso Villa on October 20, he has continued to engage key Nigerian official leaders in pursuit of justice and dialogue. According to him, the online phase of the hashtag Free Nnamdi Kanu Now movement has officially begun. 20th of October, when citizens will march physically to the Aso Rock Villa in Abuja, supporters across the world are taking the protest to the digital space. According to him, he said the goal is simply to keep the demand for justice alive and visible every single day until the government ends the unjust and unlawful incarceration of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Everyone can play a part by posting, sharing, tweeting, and amplifying the message. Let's see the video of the momentum that is gaining grounds for the release of Nnamdi Kanu.
He's also a ranking member of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. And to my left is the big elephant in the room right now. His name is well known nationally and internationally. and gentlemen, my company.
Okay, you're welcome back. We'll continue the review of some national newspapers on our lineup this Tuesday. Of course, the next paper on our lineup is This Day newspaper. This Day newspaper, like our stand in leadership. That's the leading story. Religious leaders reject U.S. claim of genocide against Nigerian Christians. And like I mentioned earlier, Khan has also rejected that tag. Also with the National Assembly, the Senate President Godswill Akpabio has raised the delegation to go to U.S. and debunk that claim. U.S. officials in Nigeria say initial findings show both faiths impacted. Khan warns against designating Nigeria country of special concern, says it will lead to suffering, leeway for terrorists to operate. JNI, Murik, others insist killers should be treated as criminals. Now we have a video of Reno Omokri, also a presidential aide to former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, who is also a special aide now, though at large, resident in U.S. for this administration. It was on Arise recently to give vent to that narrative by the U.S. government. Let's watch.
On that. Well, I think what the mayor said and what you said, I mean, I don't think you guys have addressed the issue. You see, there is a moral responsibility on the United States because this problem was brought to Nigeria's doorstep by the actions of the Obama administration. If the Obama administration had not intervened in Libya, if Gaddafi was a nasty piece of work, but he stabilized his country. If Gaddafi had not been killed, and if all those foreign mercenaries hadn't left Libya to come here, Boko Haram started, they were not violent at the beginning. Mohammed Yusuf used to have debates. He had a debate with Issa Pantami. He had a debate. That's what he was doing. He was killed, and then these guys came in and they did a hostile takeover of Boko Haram, and then that was what happened. They had arms. If the United States had not done what they did in Libya, we would not be facing a torrent, not just us, the Sahelian countries. So they just say that, okay, well, we've got minerals and we've got this, and you don't know. No. Listen, you have a moral responsibility. The United States has a moral responsibility because government is a continuum. You know, so we've seen in cases whereby the United States has paid reparations. We're not asking. Under Obama, they used a law called the Leahy Law after causing a problem to deny this country weapons. We had to go and purchase weapons on the black market. So Nigeria is paying a price for a problem that we did not cause. So, I mean, I don't want people to just come here and just say, oh, look, our president did say, I think this was about 2 months ago, that, look, I don't need President Trump because I have met my revenue target. We're doing the best that we can as a country. We're fighting corruption. We're growing our economy. Our economy has grown. I mean, we've added $67 billion to our economy in 2 years. The last quarter, it grew by 4.3%. Our economy is growing faster than our population. But this problem was caused by the actions of the Obama administration. Thank God for a good man like President Trump that lifted the objections of the Leahy Law and began selling weapons to us, like, for example, the Toscano jets. But the United States...
Yes, you're welcome back. And we are not done. We're still on the issue of genocide, Christian genocide in Nigeria by U.S. Senator Ted Cruz. We have a video of Senate President Godswill Akpabio delegating a delegation to go to the U.S. to counter that narrative. Let's have the video.
If you look at what is happening in the Southeast, predominantly Christians, most of those that are killed in the Southeast, including the late husband of our demised icon, Dora Akunyili, the way the man was shot dead and everything, will you come and ascribe that to religion? I'm talking about what IPOP is doing. You see brothers killing brothers. Okay, so the sit-at-home that is going on Mondays in the Southeast that has almost crippled the economy of the Southeast is targeted at Christians or Muslims. So Nigeria has complex security situations, and we should actually go out there and educate people. Because the moment they bring sanctions will breed poverty. Poverty knows no religion. So for me, engagement will be the best. So when we go into executive session, we can decide to set up a small ad hoc committee to go to United States or America and engage our colleague parliamentarians there. And then to to also educate them. Because if you see what these people are doing, most of them are outsiders. When they come and start spraying bullets from GP, what do you call it, or they throw rocket, they are not throwing rocket into the crowd targeting a particular religion. They are killing Nigerians. I don't know who will now go and sit down and bring out maybe the dead bodies and say, this one is a Christian, this one is from this family, this must be a Muslim. So we are facing a situation whereby these terrorists are trying to terminate the lives of Nigerians. No, I was about to look at your side because I think a lot of herbalists have also been killed in the. Is there anybody that is opposed to this motion? Okay.
Yes, we are on to newspaper review on this segment of Inside Nigeria, your breakfast show on Leadership Television. We move ahead to the next paper we have on our lineup for review this Tuesday, and that is The Punch. The Punch is looking at 2027. It says opposition splits over NAS poll shift plan. Of course, we saw that also in the earlier paper we reviewed, and that was leadership. Opposition splits over NAS, that is National Assembly poll shift plan. NASB seeks to move presidential governorship polls to November 2026. PDP and NPP alleged tenure extension plot. ADC Labour Party differ. These are kickers to the leading story on today's Punch newspaper. 2027 opposition splits over NAS poll shift plan. And that is the main cover story on the Punch newspaper. For more, log into the website of the Punch to read more on their cover stories. We move ahead to the next papers we have on our lineup, and that is Nigerian Tribune. Nigerian Tribune is also looking ahead to 2027 polls. It says National Assembly proposes November 2026 for 2027 presidential governorship polls. Once all election cases concluded before swearing in, may make use of PVCs, not mandatory. Criminalizes not stamping of ballot papers, result sheets. Stakeholders back electronic transmission of results. Kickers to the leading story on Nigerian Tribune. For more, log into the website of Nigerian Tribune this Tuesday. Moving ahead, we have the next paper on our lineup, and that is The Guardian. The Guardian's leading story says 72.64% of Nigerians' petrol imported amid rivalry from new refineries. That story has illustration beneath it, and the story also continues on page 6 of the paper. 72.64% of Nigeria's petrol imported amid rivalry from new refineries. We have functional refineries in Nigeria. Top on the list, Dangote Petroleum Refinery. We have Warri Refinery, Kaduna Refinery, Old Port Harcourt Refineries. We have Aradef Refinery, Opak Refinery, Watersmith Refinery, Dupo Midstream, Edo Refinery. Operational refineries in Nigeria and their capacity, January to June 2025. While Dangote tops the list with 650,000 barrels per day. We have Warri Refinery with 125,000 barrels per day. We have Kaduna Refinery, 110,000 barrels per day. Old Port Harcourt, 60%. Aradel, 11,000. Opak Refinery, 10,000 barrels. Watersmith Refinery, 5,000. Dupo Midstream, 2,500. And Edo Refinery, 1,000 barrels per day. This is what they refine. Their refineries refine every day. And on the other side, we have African countries with upcoming / revived refineries. We have other countries in Africa who has upcoming and revived refineries. Beneath that illustration, Nigeria's petrol supply data, October 2024 to July 2025. We have total petrol consumption of 12.5 billion liters. Import volume, 9.08 billion liters. That is 72.864%. While locally refined stood at 3.5 billion liters. That is 27.36%. Illustrations diagram beneath the leading story on today's The Guardian newspaper. 72.64% of Nigerians' petrol imported amid rivalry from new refineries. And that concludes review of front headline story on The Guardian this Tuesday. For more, log into the website of The Guardian newspaper. Well, viewers, is on that note we conclude today's Inside Nigeria, where we looked at some national newspapers and, of course, some trendy videos to the stories in the trending in the country. It's on this note to also conclude, and don't forget to join us on this station for news on the hour. My name is Winifred Ugbebo. I look forward to having you same time, same station for another fresh edition of the program Inside Nigeria. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.